because you're the lead commentator for the PFL, let us begin with Francis Ngannou, who has signed with the Professional Fighters League. And certainly I'm very happy for you. It's very exciting for him on a personal level. It's exciting to think about the possibilities in Africa in terms of this ambassadorship and how much he can do over there. But people who want to see one of the baddest men on the planet competing in a mixed martial arts space aren't necessarily ingesting this as welcome news. He fought Cyril Gane January 22nd, 2022. And now it seems like best case scenario, maybe we get him midway through 2024 in an MMA setting, which would amount to a 2.5-year layoff. Yeah. And it's not as though he's 29 years of age, but humongous news when a heavyweight of this stature, former UFC heavyweight champion, changes promotions. And you'll be calling his next fight in mixed martial arts, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, thank you, man. I'm very excited about it. And thank you for saying what you said. I think that, a big part of this deal was complicated by the fact that Francis Ngannou wanted to compete in boxing as well. And I think that's his intention prior to 2024, which is why we're seeing an even longer layoff. But also, I think he thought that he had more to offer the space. Not only did he want to make a little bit more money, but I think he wanted to be more involved and kind of have more of a hands-on role and help with some kind of development and do something for fighters in other places. That place ended up being Africa. I mean, he is such a big deal there and such an inspiration all over the world that I think it ended up becoming a great deal for everybody involved. And, I think the PFL really worked extremely hard to get him. And obviously just with everything going on and all the competition out there, I wasn't sure what was going to happen, honestly. And the fact that the PFL was, was finally able to get him, I think shows their commitment to raise the level of mixed martial arts in the PFL. And I'm curious to see who they're going to have him fight in 2024. So always good, I think, for the fighters when you have other options and other organizations that are paying well.
There are a lot of different layers to this, and I think just by nature of who cuts my check, people are going to probably see my take as being pro-UFC, and part of it is just getting to some discussion points when we talk about his opponents and who they might actually be and on what timeline this stuff might actually take place. In terms of the boxing stuff, Kenny, is there going to be a fight against Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder or somebody that I'm not thinking of? It seems as though Anthony Joshua has been dismissive of a fight with Francis Ngannou. That would seem to be the delay, right? He's now enough months removed from his surgery where seemingly the delay to MMA competition would just be the boxing. Is that the way you understand it, that PFL is giving him their blessing to pursue this major boxing payday that he hope materializes between now and his PFL debut?
I think that's probably partially responsible for why we're going to see him in 2024 and not in 2023. I think that's something that he wanted to pursue. And candidly, I'm all for fighters trying to make as much money as possible. But what I don't love, or what I'm not so excited about all the time, is seeing a fighter go outside of their realm of specialty, similar to what Conor McGregor did against Floyd Mayweather and Francis Ngannou, trying to do now here. I think that is, while he's extremely dangerous and one of the hardest hitting punchers in the world, no matter what, boxing or MMA, the art of boxing is something that is very different. And I don't know. I think hopefully people find it intriguing. I don't so as much. I want to see Francis Ngannou do mixed martial arts. That's what he does best. So I'm not too keen on seeing boxers go into MMA and MMA fighters go into boxing. I just think it's a little bit too different. But hey, if he sees the value in it and he has the opportunity to make money, then, go for it.
Now, I'm not going to put you on the spot as if I'm interviewing you today and ask you, what can you tell us about PFL Africa, Ken Flo, right? Because that's not your job, and I want this podcast to continue to be fun for you. Sure. But I can tell you, and you probably know this, Kamaru Usman has a regional promotion in Africa, and he has gone to great lengths to put on at least 2 live events, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I don't know how that compares to what seems to be a grander initiative for the PFL, which is a major promotion, and for Francis Ngannou. But let's see what happens. Let's see exactly what materializes there. But it's very exciting to think about that angle. It's very exciting to think about his opponents making $2 million, right? Because that sort of raises everything for everybody. But who is it going to be? Your heavyweight champion is Ante D'Elia, and his nickname is Walking Trouble. He's 23-5. I'm not going to sit here and denigrate your PFL heavyweight champion and talk about a loss against Marcin Tybura back in 2015. And I'm not trying to put our executive producer, Cody Merrow, on the spot, right? But when I asked Cody in a pinch last week, and Cody, you know how much I love you, I asked him in a pinch, who's the PFL heavyweight champion? He didn't just give me that name immediately, and he was at his last fight. Right. So is it going to be Ante D'Elia? Is it going to be a tournament winner? I guess a lot could materialize in the PFL heavyweight division between now and then, but it would seem as though Francis Ngannou, would he be challenger when he makes his PFL debut against somebody who has some piece of a belt, tournament or otherwise?
Listen, I think that there's some valid points there, right? I think Ante D'Elia is a phenomenal heavyweight. Not a lot of people know who he is because maybe a lot of people are following the UFC and not the PFL. Right. That is fair. And in order to put on a big fight, you need to put on a fight between two individuals, hopefully, that people know extremely well. That's what's going to give you that big fight. Now, Ante D'Elia is one of those guys that the UFC was looking at when they were going to sign him. Phenomenal protege under Cro Cop, judo black belt, excellent grappler, but really known for his knockout power. Now, is that the guy that's going to face Francis Ngannou? I'm not sure. I think it would make it a competitive fight for the most part. I think it would be an interesting fight. But at the end of the day, I think it's the PFL's job and any MMA organization's job to put on fights that people want to see. And I think name power is going to dictate that. So who knows? I think that if I'm a UFC heavyweight or I'm a heavyweight in another organization, I'm going, well, I'm making this amount of money right now. And the PFL is guaranteeing at least $1 million, possibly $2 million for me to go to fight Francis Ngannou, and my contract is maybe up on the line. What would prevent you from doing that besides the contract itself?
Well, yeah. I think that it would be maybe a longer-term play with the UFC. There's some reports that Ngannou's deal with the PFL is only a handful of fights, right? And sure, I'm not even going to start naming a UFC heavyweight that potentially would cross over or be towards the tail end of the contract and have a big enough name. You need the perfect storm, right? Yeah, I just think it's ambitious to think that there's going to be some relatively big name UFC heavyweight that's going to take the short term play that is the PFL. But I love Francis Ngannou. I'm very happy that it's the PFL because Kenflo can get me tickets. No, but I think it makes a lot of sense. And I just hope that the big fight materializes for him on the boxing side because otherwise there were just a lot of big fights that could have happened in the UFC. Now, Eric Nixick, and forgive me for not crediting the platform, has come out and said that the UFC said to them at one point in time that they couldn't even get a hold of John Jones for 2 months, So I do think there is blame to be levied on several sides when it comes to the Francis Ngannou-John Jones fight not materializing. But big picture, if you're a mixed martial arts fan and you're a Francis Ngannou fan, in the context of him being an MMA fighter, him taking 2.5 years off as the baddest man on the planet is fruitless. And I understand that he had an injury and that's a big chunk of that. But, this is what I think a lot of people expected to be the resolution, and we'll see how it plays out. But hopefully we're talking first or second quarter 2024 because, I'm as impatient as an 11-year-old kid right now for Francis Ngannou back in a mixed martial arts setting.